going to record on this. I think you even have to say okay for that.
Yeah.
So I'll start off the recording. I'm going to be saying something like, welcome to this podcast, The Power of Coaching in Education. And today we'll be talking with Rakesh Lazar.
Hi, Martin. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you today. Indeed, it's very meaningful for me to share about what coaching means to me, right? And I want to start with a little about myself as an educator. Apart from the many years of work that I've tried in call center and client support, and of course, I've failed in 2 business ventures myself, a lot of learnings there. And then I happened to be a part of an international business school in South Korea for the past 9 years now, with students from over 60 countries, right? Multicultural, diverse, and I had a chance to involve in many activities, including international marketing, student enrollments, and mentoring, right? And I did have a lot of opportunities to teach at other business schools as a visiting faculty in Switzerland and also in India. Workshops, seminars on various topics were also a part of the exposure that I've had. And I think it's useful for me to add that my wife is a teacher herself and manages a language academy, right? And she has certainly been a source of my learning, right? Do I continue with
Sure.
the other questions?
Yeah.
All right. So, what made me become a coach? This question is definitely very heavy for me because I'll have to dive deep myself to answer this question. So as I shared, I had this experience in different countries. By the way, my wife is Russian and we are living in Korea, right? And I had a very interesting job. A part of my job was also to travel a lot because I was in student recruitment, student enrollment, visiting countries, giving seminars and workshops, having interviews and so on. Life was good. I got paid every month. I'm living with the person that I love. And apparently I'm also doing the thing that I'm good at, marketing and teaching. However, I'm happy, but there was something missing. I'm happy, but I'm not satisfied. So that was a point which actually I was sinking in it for quite some time until I actually took action on that. So I began to pay attention to really understand what is it that I'm enjoying in my regular routine. And believe it or not, it was conversations. Mentoring was a very small part of what I do, and that involved conversation. And I was stimulated in, giving this experience to students. I mean, mind it, I myself living abroad and students are coming from overseas, so they have a lot of issues themselves. Apart from academic, they have financial situations, they have psychological issues because they are missing their home, they're missing their food, they're missing the kind of nurturing that they were used to, and now they're completely out of their comfort zone. And the biggest question, they were struggling to manage their independence, to manage their freedom in a foreign country. So mentoring is what I started with. And I put a finger on conversations as what really stimulates me, right? And from there on, I begin to realize, conversations. With all these things that I'm doing, conversations is what brings me satisfaction. Okay, then I assumed that it could be something to do with human psychology, because I have this natural tendency to, think about and learn about how we think, how we learn, how our mind works, what role the brain plays in how we do things like that. So I thought, hey, maybe I need to be taking a course in psychology. And as I was exploring options in that direction, I stumbled upon professional coaching, so to speak, because I did not know the extent of what professional coaching is all about and what it's been doing. I'm fairly new, so to speak, in this field. I mean, I would say I know that there is something called professional coaching, maybe 7-8 years only, right? And as soon as I got to know about that, I was like, hey, this is it. It was not about psychology, or it was not about me trying to explore how the brain works. It was about bringing the best out of the other, bringing the potential, the uniqueness from the other person, being able to facilitate a realization is what I was trying to do. Bam, signed up for a program, got myself certified. And of course, it was a journey of 2 years for me to do that from an academy in Singapore, which I'm very closely associated with even today. And there it is. That is how I became a coach, because I learned that there is a scientific and systematic way to take forward a conversation to facilitate a realization, to being able to offer a viewpoint for a sustainable change, right? So this is why I'm here and would love to continue to be.
I get that. I love the way that coaching was a coincidence for so many coaches. We stumble upon it.
Yeah,
we don't
exactly
go out and think, oh, I'll become a coach today. We're looking for something more than we've got. Even though we are very happy, there's always that itch for more. And we then look. So there's kind of an adventure in all of us. And when we look, we don't sometimes recognize what we found. Sometimes the name of the thing that we found is new to us. So coaching is quite new. It is 25 years old, I think, if you go by the accepted story. And you and I are very new in the business, in the branch and the science of coaching. Another question that we ask coaches is about their first experience, particularly when we realize how coaching was different to other disciplines, sometimes referred to as the magic of coaching. Rather fluffy term, but it does feel like it's magical. Could you say something about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I have a vivid memory about my first experience being coached. And indeed, it contributed for me to carry on this path, in fact. I remember it to be a very genuine conversation. It was not some standard trick or a sequence of questions, right? What happened to me was that I realized that it was challenging my thoughts. Usually there are these thoughts which we just sweep under the rug. These are the ones that are buried deep inside us. But in my first experience of coaching, this was in the spotlight. This was clearly seen. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. And you feel an obligation to take action on this insight that you've had, right? Allow me to share with you an analogy, right? So for me, it was almost like everything was inside me, and what I had to do was to bring it out, like a Lego box. Actually, see, this is my wife's teaching material to kids, and this is like a Lego box, so this is, these are some cards, but you know what I mean. So there are the pieces of the puzzle inside it, just like how the thoughts and ideas are inside us. And first you need to take them all out and bring it on the table, so you are able to see what is there, to be able to bring all the pieces out of you and then put it together. Because you cannot solve a Lego from within the box. That's almost impossible. So you need to bring it out. So the process of coaching allows you to dive deep inside and to bring out all that is from within, so that you're able to see it more clearly and then build your way forward. So this was my experience in it. And another piece I would love to add there is that all of these things, I think the thing that I want to add is why it is different from everything else, whether it is training, consulting, or mentoring, or therapy. Coaching, at least in my philosophy and experience, is deeply rooted in self-realization, right? I have a story I want to share, right? So I'm from Bangalore in South India. And when I grew up, we used to have a lot of power cuts, power outage for at least 2 to 3 hours every evening. There were a lot of cats and kittens and dogs and puppies. It was an Indian home, a large home with a yard and so on. Whenever we used to light candles during the power cuts, the kittens were very curious and they used to come running towards the flame. And I felt the need to protect them from getting their whiskers burnt. So I used to always be there to just push them away, because I cannot make them understand the damage the fire could cause. My mother, noticing this for quite some time, told me, Rakesh, what would happen when you are not around? Why don't you allow them to be? I mean, of course, it's not going to be life-threatening. Let's see what happens. I took the courage to let them be, and a kitten approached the fire, and once it realized the heat, from then onwards, whenever there is a candle lit, the kittens are never to be seen. And so I believe self-realization is the strongest advice. You may know what it is, and you can even tell them, you can train them, you can mentor them, counsel them, right? However, unless they understand from their own experience of thinking or being, they are unable to have a deeper learning experience. And this is why I believe coaching is a sustainable way forward, right? So this is also what I wanted to add to what happened to me during my first experience. This is what happened to me. I had the self-realization. I had insights that were actionable. I had the next step that I should be taking. You will not know everything, of course, because grass is always green on the other side, but you know what is the next best step for you. So that is what happened to me in my initial experience, and I still remember that vividly.
I'm sure you do. We usually, I think for every coach, there's a first time of being coached. And even the first time of coaching, when you actually cross the threshold from being a consultant, too much of a helper. And then you learn not to, like your mother said, let them find out. You don't control the outcome. And the first couple of times you do that, when you're not trying to control the outcome of the coaching, and it's much more wonderful than you can ever have imagined, you then realize the power of coaching is actually keeping out of the way. But that doesn't mean you don't do anything, obviously. Thank you. I love your stories. I can hear myself pausing the tape and saying, and then adding one of my stories saying, oh, like Rakesh, blah, 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 blah. I have, my 10 minutes in the lap light. This is the way we're going to use it. We're going to take Rakesh's story about the kittens and then take 2 or 3 other coaches' stories about their first time and do like, these 3 are very similar. On another recording, these 3 are so totally different. And yet what they have in common is first experience.
Sure.
A couple more questions.
Martin,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Do you want me to be more concise? Or
No,
is
not
it
at all. No.
Okay. No, because I thought I'm being too
not at all. No.
detailed.
Not every phrase and every word is going to get through the edit, because we're going to be doing 2-minute, really, really short ones and other much longer ones. So we can say, for example, this is a podcast with Rakesh Lazar, and it's maybe 1/10 of what you've said. Would you like to hear more? Please click on this longer episode. Now, someone who loves the sound of your voice, your story, they will click on more, but they're already committed to listening to more. And now they want as much as possible. They don't want any editor to go in and take bits out. So there will be both showpiece podcasts and what we call library podcasts. I've got really long stories that I've put together. They've been shredded almost into paragraphs, because each one of them is useful as a bait, I suppose, if you want to put it that way, to attract attention. I've copied this one. You cannot solve a Lego whilst it's in the box. I love that.
Yeah.
You cannot solve it. I mean, a Lego, I think we've all got an idea of what that is. If it's in the box, it's packed tight. You can't do anything with it. You've got to bleh. And that's kind of the therapeutic side of coaching, where you get all the inside out.
Yeah.
And then you've got to put light on it. Love it. Okay, 2 more questions. One is about the benefits of coaching in education. So now it's like with colleagues, with students, or if you manage people, where does coaching come in and what are the benefits in particular? And the second one is what skills, if you can break down some of the skills. We will be doing a very broad job of all of the skills. So you don't have to mention everything. You might say my top 3 skills are, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So going back to education context, why is it that coaching is powerful in an education context?
Allow me to share with you, where we are in terms of education, right? So here is my perspective on this. The education system that we are in right now has been designed during the Industrial Revolution, right? Where there has been more emphasis on the economy, mass production, right? And it was a need for the economy and the nation to thrive, for people to be doing the same things and repeated actions. It's almost like standing in the production line, right? However, now, due to advanced technologies, digital transformation, automation, robotics, we are into the cognitive revolution. And that doesn't mean all our problems are solved. We are having newer problems. We are having unique problems. And this can be approached, or this can be addressed with the power of education. While we're talking about education, the first thing that comes to my mind are the future leaders, right? I believe I'm talking to educators here to a larger extent, right? These future leaders are unique, just like you and me. Think about it. Our fingerprints are unique. The iris in the retina is unique. The DNA composition is unique. I believe there is something unique that each one of us, each one of the student is capable of offering to this world. Maradona found it. Michael Schumacher found it. Probably Tiger Woods found it. Or certain CEOs or some leaders of NGOs or some people in other fields of exploration, they found it, who are on the pinnacle of their industry or the pinnacle of the success in their family or life or even the school, right? So what is it that you're here for? This is the question that education should facilitate the students to be able to answer. So my point being, as an educator, teaching is what you do. And that should facilitate realizations, because self-realizations are the most sustainable lessons. If you heard about what I spoke earlier, self-realization is the strongest advice. Come on, don't you agree with me that your students don't always want to listen to you? Why should they listen to you? They don't even listen to their parents. I don't like advice. I never grew up listening to others. I don't like it. I don't like when somebody tells me what to do. However, if I am made to understand and realize in my own style of learning and the way I process, I am willing to comprehend. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to explore. I'm willing to accept your perspective. I'm willing to take part. I'm willing to cooperate. I'm willing to collaborate. I'm willing to work together. I'm willing to work for each other. So this is where I believe coaching is very powerful in education. Very powerful in education. And if I want to add a last piece to it, coaching, it creates a safe space, because as we just spoke about the uniqueness of people, they are always hesitant to share their point of view because they want to conform to the social situations, right? Social conformity has come in the way of so many, even you and me. But when it is in a safe space where we are willing to listen, where we are allowing others to be heard, we are also allowing them to share their own unique perspectives, because we are talking about unique challenges. We need unique solutions. And so I believe this will allow to bring the uniqueness out of an individual for their own personal satisfaction, point number one, and for the well-being of the society, the nation, and the world as a whole.
So I heard you say two things. The reason for using coaching, one is that it addresses uniqueness of the individual. Yeah. It puts I'm not sure you use these words, but it puts the responsibility for learning. They are willing to learn now. Instead of being forced to learn or pushed to learn, they're more willing to learn because you've changed the way you teach. And the result of that is that you get individuals who are unique coming out of the system, rather than individuals who conform to the industrialized jobs that they were going to have. We don't have that anymore. We need uniqueness. So that's a two-pronged approach I hear in your argument.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I mean, if I need to add to that, I like the way you said it. It's almost like mass production. If we want everybody to learn what we teach and only that, then that is mass production. We are having the 1,000 items which looks the same, right? However, may I give another example,
Sure.
Martin? It's almost like nurturing a garden, right? Garden is, I want to refer to garden as a programmed way of bringing things up. Here there are roses, here there are tomatoes, and here there are creepers. And everybody is trimmed in a way for your convenience and for what the resources will allow. If you go on a vacation and make no arrangements to take care of them, they will certainly die. However, how about a forest? Nobody takes care of it. They grow wildly. They find their own resources because they have been given freedom to explore, and they inevitably find it. So I believe this is the difference of what education is and changing to a large extent, but very slowly, and what it needs to be. What it needs to be for it to be sustainable and for it to thrive like in a wild forest. It will be evergreen and it will continue to grow in its own beauty. However, we as teachers and we as leaders should make it possible and should make it available for the world to look at them and accept them in their own uniqueness.
You're speaking to a gardener, so that was rather an appropriate metaphor. So you're describing the regimented garden as being vulnerable. It constantly needs attention and support to keep
Correct.
it going.
Correct.
Whereas the wild-grown forest sustains itself because the plants are allowed to adapt to their situation. And of course, roses came from the forest, and we've trimmed them to be what we want them to be, the right
Correct.
shape and size, and the
Correct.
carrots and whatever else you said. And we've got an issue with the garden not producing what we need. It's costing us too much to keep the garden up. Let's go back to the, I'm thinking of the Garden of Eden, the original forest, if you like, the original garden, where things were the way they were, they ordained to be, and they were probably not in straight rows. They were probably a beautiful, chaotic garden.
Yeah, beautifully chaotic. That's
Yes,
right.
That's the
right.
one, yes.
That's so true.
That's so true. I'd like to pick your brains a little bit. As someone who's both trained as a coach and become certified as a coach, I know it was a 2-year training for you. What skills do you use, or does a teacher need to be able to use in order to use coaching or a coach-like approach in their classrooms or staff room? What comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to my mind is curiosity. Who's not curious? I'm curious. I believe everybody is curious about something. And I would hope to believe that the teachers are curious to explore the potential of their students, rather than to just deliver the curriculum, get the exams done and move on. Of course, if it is a job, we understand that's how it could be. But if teachers could look at it as a career, and if they could exercise a little curiosity, genuine curiosity, I believe that is a great start, because that will allow the willingness to try. When they have the willingness to try, they get to taste. And when they taste it, it is highly possible that they're going to like it, because that is the nature of who we are. Basically, I just want to say, coaching is a learned skill, right? It's a learned skill. And that gives us hope. So anybody can have a coaching approach. Anybody can have a coaching mindset because it's a learned skill. And I want to actually say that we are actually coaches by human nature, because coaching is all about being human, listening deeply, having empathy, allowing others to share, right? Asking them meaningful questions so that they feel heard, giving respect, allowing space, and being accountable for each other's personal and professional development. That sounds to me like a human being. And that is coaching. So when I say it's a learned skill, probably I should say it is to be relearned, because it is in our nature to be human. And basically, we just need to bring it out. Would it be okay if I share a small story? A journalist went to a monastery in Tibet, yeah, to meet the head monk. He was very excited to get this interview because these people are extremely busy saving the world, right? His question to the spiritual leader was that, how many hours do you meditate for you to have such kind of an influence and inspiration to this world? You must be so powerful. How many hours do you meditate? The monk did not answer this question immediately, and he asked again, you mean how many times I meditate? Yes, how many times do you sit down and meditate? Said, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and on special occasions, maybe 30, 35 minutes. The journalist was shocked. You mean to say you just meditate for 20, 30 minutes? That's it? I said, yeah. The monk got his question because he is a humble human being. So he went ahead to explain. You see, meditation is not about sitting with your legs crossed, closing your eyes, and focusing on your breathing. Meditation is about being meditative in your way of life, in the way you talk, in the way you walk, in the way you eat, in the way you interact, in the way you get things done, in the way you sleep. So it is about being meditative. So if your question is, how often are you meditative? I am meditative all the time. Similarly, I believe coaching is, of course, a tool and a learned skill that can be used in particular situations. However, coaching is a way of life. You will inevitably come to realize that you cannot just stop it in your classroom or stop it in your staff meetings. You will find it beneficial in dealing with your spouse, in interacting with your children, in having discussions in your community, in your own personal reflections and development. So to answer the question, what would educators need to, be coach-like or to have an approach? Curiosity. Just try. Just see how it feels. Taste it. And I believe you will love it.
I believe that too. I like the way you got it from coaching is something to do, like a skill set that you pick up, like tools, and how it is actually a way of being. It's the being of coaching that gets the results rather than the specific tools. And teachers, I think, generally are curious about their students, but they are also bound to teach the syllabus. And that's the balance. It's a bit like a life work balance. They've been given a job to do something which is different to what they really would like to do. Those kind of conversations that you spoke about. I have most of the teachers I work with just love it when students really engage authentically in deep conversations. And there's a but, they have to go back to teaching them something. And what if you could do both? That's, you know, what if you can get your lessons across, or even don't try to make a lesson out of it, just turn it into an experience. Anyway, thank you very much.
No, that's a great point, Martin. That's a great point. And I think it has to, you know, technically do with the education system on how we evaluate the potential and the performance of the students. Yes. Because right now it's so standardized. It's midterm exam, final exam, project submission. So we are not necessarily looking at the important aspects of what really takes a person to be fulfilled. We are only evaluating how they can survive by finding a job. You know, so it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think a big change needs to happen. So for now, teachers need coaching first, and then
yeah, I think teachers need to be coached. They need to experience coaching, and then to become coaches, they probably already are a little bit, some of them quite a lot. But then they also need the freedom to not test or assess in the way that you described there, the kind of mechanical one. I've been speaking with a Finnish teacher who's also a coach, and she said something like, when I mentioned a rather similar attitude towards assessment, she says, but assessment can be used for learning. And there's like the whole room went quiet. Like, what do you mean assessment used for learning? And then we dug into that question, because she's not doing assessment at all in the way that you described. And I think the Finnish education system in general has learned a few ways, different ways of both teaching, motivating teachers, motivating students, supporting them, and assessing them. That's different to those of us who are stuck in the industrialized system. Anyway, so what I'll do is I'll just pause the recording. Thank you very much, kind sir. How do I stop the recording? Oh, there.